"You're gonna eat it, Cruz." The mocking laughter rang out as Elena first gripped the heavy M4 in the misty Washington forest. To her teammates, she was just a slight Texas girl, no match for the guys born into military families. But Elena carried her grandfather's legacy, a veteran who taught her that a gun isn't fired with muscle but with discipline and breath. When the first rounds echoed, no one expected them to carve a perfect circle dead center on the target. The noisy barracks fell silent. Who was the real burden, and who would become the terror on the training field? The Texas plains stretched endlessly under the scorching sun, where Elena Cruz spent most of her childhood not in malls or nail salons like her classmates, but in the small garage behind her house. The smell of motor oil, the clank of a hammer on metal, and her grandfather's grease-stained hands were her most familiar backdrop. He, a World War II veteran, didn't just teach her how to rebuild old engines. He instilled deeper principles. That discipline always trumps appearances, and skill is what defines a person's worth. On summer afternoons, as the sun dipped low, he'd set up tin cans on the fence and hand Elena a rusty old rifle. She learned to breathe deeply, keep her heartbeat steady, and squeeze the trigger smoothly instead of jerking it. The first shots left her shoulder aching, but her grandfather's proud gaze made every bruise worthwhile. In those moments, Elena felt a quiet strength rising within her. Not physical power, but the strength of patience and belief. When Elena turned 18, her future seemed preordained by her family. Her parents expected her to attend college, with grades good enough for a scholarship. But on one calm afternoon, instead of applying to universities, Elena walked through the door of the recruiting office on Main Street. The smell of paperwork, the creak of a spinning fan, and the recruiter's surprised stare said it all. Young women didn't often come alone, especially with such a resolute look. "What are you doing, Elena?" Her mother's voice nearly broke at dinner that night when Elena announced her decision. The fork trembled in her hand. Her father stayed silent, but his eyes brimmed with worry. They saw their daughter as capable of anything: doctor, engineer, lawyer, but not a soldier with a rifle on her shoulder. Elena took a deep breath, her hands still calloused from years of working with her grandfather. She didn't want to argue, but she couldn't back down either. She'd grown up hearing whispers: girls don't belong in garages, girls shouldn't hold guns. If she gave up now, all those years of training would mean nothing. 3 weeks later, a military bus carried the new recruits away from Texas, winding through endless roads toward the northwest. The landscape shifted hourly, from parched grasslands to dense, fog-shrouded forests in Washington. Fort Lewis emerged under a gray sky, its barbed wire fences and cold barracks buildings looming like they could swallow youthful dreams whole. As soon as the wheels stopped, a real storm hit. Drill sergeants roared, their commands drowning out the rain. Elena and dozens of other recruits were herded off the bus, lined up as sweat and rainwater mingled. In a few short hours, they signed papers, underwent medical checks, tried on uniforms, and cut off the long hair that had once been a point of pride. That first night, Elena collapsed onto a bunk in a cramped room, next to Jessica, a fellow recruit from California with anxious eyes. They exchanged a few whispered words in the dark, but both knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, the clang of a metal trash can being struck woke the barracks at 4 a.m. Elena bolted upright in panic, scrambling outside with her teammates. The sky was still dark, their breaths forming faint clouds in the damp air. The first physical training session left many exhausted, but Elena's body responded with familiarity. Years of manual labor in the garage had forged an endurance that textbooks could never teach. But even as she completed the drills, skeptical eyes lingered, especially from Cole Hart, a male recruit from a long line of military men. Tall, confident, and smirking every time he glanced at Elena, Cole didn't hesitate to mock. "Let's see how long this Texas girl lasts." Elena heard it all, but chose silence. She remembered her grandfather's words: "Don't argue with words. Let your actions speak for you." In a brief moment after dinner, when the barracks quieted, Elena pulled an old letter from her backpack. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting shaky, a letter her grandfather sent when she enlisted. In it, he confessed that he'd failed his first shooting test as a young soldier. But my girl, failure isn't the end. It's the first bullet that teaches you to hit the mark next time. Elena clutched the letter tightly. At Fort Lewis, where every day began with shouts and ended in exhaustion, she knew she'd face more than sweat and bruises. She'd confront prejudice, mocking laughter, and the gnawing fear of failure in her heart. But in her shining eyes, there was only one promise. She would prove she belonged here. Dear audience, grab a glass of water, take a moment to relax, and keep listening to the story. The twists are still to come. And please drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a joy to see who's joining us from around the world. Drop a 1 in the comments if you find this story gripping, so we can keep bringing you more captivating tales. The Washington sky was still pitch black when the sound of metal striking a trash can echoed through the barracks. Elena sprang from her bunk, heart pounding, breath ragged. No time to think. She yanked on her crisp uniform and laced her boots in a rush. Outside, dozens of recruits spilled from their rooms, eyes bleary, steps stumbling. The air was thick with moisture, fog so dense it swallowed the streetlights. They lined up in minutes, spines rigid like tree trunks. Sergeant Williams approached, his icy gaze sweeping over each face. His voice boomed like thunder. Stand tall. There's no room for weakness here. You'll learn to endure, or you'll break. On that first day, Elena realized Fort Lewis was unlike anywhere she'd known. Mornings began with runs through the forest, boots soaked from trudging through mud and decayed leaves. The biting cold turned breaths into white clouds, but the sergeant's shouts ensured anyone who slowed was made an example. By noon, they'd endured countless physical drills, push-ups, rope climbs, obstacle courses, until many recruits could barely lift their arms. Elena pushed through, every muscle aching. But memories of sweltering Texas afternoons fixing machines helped her endure. Back then, no one gave her a break when sweat stung her eyes. Her grandfather only said, "Finish the job first, complain later." She applied that rule to every drill, gritting her teeth despite trembling hands. But perseverance couldn't hide the scrutinizing stares. At the mess hall, as Elena carried her tray, whispers rose behind her. One recruit sneered, "She thinks this is a gym class? Wait till the shooting range, then we'll see." The words spread like wildfire in a dry forest. Cole Hart was the loudest. From a family of soldiers, he wore his arrogance like invisible armor. Tall, sharp-voiced, and always leading in running drills, Cole never missed a chance to belittle Elena. "Cruz, you're probably better with a wrench than a rifle. Don't make us save you on the battlefield." His friend's laughter echoed through the mess hall. Elena sat at her table, eyes fixed on her tray, choosing silence. She knew reacting would only fuel the rumors. Her grandfather had drilled it into her. People can laugh at you, but never let them take your calm. The days that followed were relentlessly grueling. Morning runs, daytime lessons on folding bunks with perfect corners, afternoon tactical training. Sleep was never enough. In the dim barracks light, Elena and Jessica whispered a few words before exhaustion claimed them. Jessica admitted she hadn't expected training to be so brutal. Elena only gave a faint smile, hiding the blisters on her hands. But the real test lay ahead. One foggy morning, Sergeant Williams gathered the unit at the firing range. Dozens of M4 rifles lined the racks, their steel glinting coldly in the mist. Williams spoke curtly. "Today you'll find out if you can be real soldiers. Out here, running and push-ups mean nothing. A soldier exists to shoot accurately and survive." Elena stepped forward, palms sweaty. She felt dozens of eyes on her back, especially Cole's. Arms crossed with a mocking smirk. In that moment, she was 12 again, teased by kids for daring to sit in the garage with her grandfather. But this time was different. She was no longer the shy girl. She took an M4 from the rack, its cold weight familiar in her hands. Ahead, targets stood in the fog, their black and white circles hazy. Her heart raced, but Elena breathed deeply, recalling those Texas fence line shooting lessons. Inhale, hold, squeeze. The gunshot cracked, shattering the tense silence. Other recruits craned to see the result. When the instructors pulled the target back, the barracks went quiet. The bullet holes formed a tight cluster dead center. Not luck. It was control, discipline, lessons carved into her since she was 10. Sergeant Williams approached, eyes narrowed. He didn't smile, but his voice carried across the range. Cruz just set a new standard for this company. Murmurs erupted. Some recruits were stunned, others frowned in irritation. Cole's fists clenched, his usual confidence fading. Elena set the rifle down, saying nothing. But inside, the small flame that had simmered for years roared to life. The Washington forest's chill seeped into every muscle, but Elena was growing accustomed. After the shooting session that silenced the company, the barracks rhythm seemed to shift. She was no longer just the scrawny Texas girl to be mocked. Now, everywhere in the mess hall, training yard, even on marches, eyes followed her. Some held grudging respect, others raw resentment. Jessica was the first to break the silence. That night, when the barracks lights went out, she whispered, "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Elena only smiled. Her grandfather taught her, bullet by bullet, breath by breath. But she didn't elaborate, knowing the strength wasn't just in technique, but in believing she had a right to stand among them. In the training sessions that followed, Elena kept proving it. The range wasn't just static targets anymore. They moved to tougher drills, moving targets, targets behind obstacles, low-light shooting. For many recruits, sudden gunfire and smoke made them flinch, their shots veering wide. But Elena stayed calm. She observed, adjusted her breathing, and let her bullets find their mark. Once, during a nighttime test, the Lewis Forest fog was so thick, visibility dropped to a few meters. Recruits around her fumbled, shouting as they missed shot after shot. Elena knelt, recalling Texas afternoons when wind rocked the tin cans on the fence. She inhaled deeply, feeling the damp air fill her lungs, calculated the slight bullet drift, and fired. When the metal target rang ting in the fog, the whole team turned. In the dark, her eyes burned bright, as if she was born for this place. Her standout performance drew some recruits to her for advice. A few younger ones asked her to show them how to hold a rifle, how to steady their heart rate. Jessica stood by, absorbing every detail. Elena explained with concise gestures. A small circle of admiration formed around her, but at the same time, the whispers of envy grew heavier than before. Colehart didn't miss a chance to strike. He often lingered at the back of the line, watching every time Elena stepped to the range. After her scores came up, he muttered loudly enough for others to hear. "Just luck. Paper targets don't shoot back. Let's see how she survives when real bullets fly." His words planted doubt in some recruits' minds. They started to wonder, was Elena truly skilled? Or just a show-off? Elena heard every word but swallowed them, like swallowing the cold morning rain. She knew in the military, nothing spoke louder than results, and she'd let her bullets answer for every argument. Beyond the range, Elena proved herself in physical drills too. When the team had to climb ropes dozens of meters high in the rain, many recruits quit halfway. Elena gripped the rope, fingers bleeding, but reached the top. During forest marches with heavy packs, she kept a steady pace, never complaining. The discipline from garage work had forged her into a quiet but relentless warrior. At night, when the barracks sank into exhaustion, Elena often sat by the window, rereading her grandfather's letter. The shaky handwriting was a reminder. Success doesn't come from one perfect shot. It comes from daring to stand again after everyone else has quit. Each time she read it, her heart found peace, as if he were watching from the shadows. But that peace didn't last. One afternoon, during a brief break, Elena overheard Cole and his friends whispering behind her. "I don't get why the instructors let her shine like that. Obviously, they're biased. Someone needs to put her in her place." Their dry laughter cut sharper than the mountain wind. Elena turned away, but a sinking feeling told her this conflict wouldn't end with words. That day on the training field, the instructors announced a group tactical exercise in the forest. No more paper targets, this was a simulated combat scenario. The company buzzed with anticipation. Elena gripped her rifle tightly, knowing this was the real test where envy and prejudice could become a burden or a chance to prove, once and for all, that she belonged. The Lewis forest was swallowed in thick darkness, damp air clinging to skin, rain dripping from the canopy in a steady, cold rhythm like a merciless clock. Elena tightened her rifle strap, her pack slamming against her back like stone. Around her, recruits moved in a loose formation, their breaths misty in the fog. This wasn't the range or the training yard. This was a tactical test, where the unit had to navigate rugged terrain and locate targets in absolute silence. Cole Hart, as usual, assumed command. No one appointed him, but his sharp voice and cocky confidence forced the group to follow. "Stick with me," he whispered, eyes glinting in the dim red flashlight glow. Elena noticed his pace was too fast, boots crunching through dry leaves and snapping twigs. In the night forest, every small sound could be a deadly signal. Elena wanted to speak up but held back. She knew any objection now would be seen as defiance. Instead, she watched closely. As they pushed deeper through the hazy fog, she glimpsed silhouettes of other units in the distance. Cole didn't notice. Focused on his map, he drove the team straight into an exposed area. Minutes later, the scenario erupted. Simulated gunfire burst from multiple directions, flashes lighting up the dark forest. Cole's unit was caught in crossfire. Recruits shouted, ducking behind wet trees for cover. Cole's orders grew chaotic, yelling, "Advance one moment, fall back the next," leaving the team disoriented. Elena pressed herself into the mud, peering through a gap. She saw a greater danger. If they followed Cole's path, they'd fire on a friendly unit moving parallel to them. A blue-on-blue disaster could unfold. Even in a drill. She took a deep breath, heart pounding. This wasn't just a test. It was a web of trust. A measure of each person's capability. "Listen to me," Elena growled softly, her voice firm despite the mock gunfire. A few hesitant eyes turned to her. She pointed to a forested ridge, where terrain offered cover and a chance to flank. "If we go straight, we'll hit our own side. This way, we can flank safely." Cole spun around, face flushed in the flickering light. "Shut it, Cruz, let me lead." But just then, a mock flare burst, illuminating the truth. The friendly unit was mere dozens of meters away, rifles aimed their way. The reality hit, and no one wanted to risk it. Two recruits near Elena nodded and followed her. Others, in a moment of panic, shifted too. Within minutes, they escaped the mock kill zone, circling through the ridge. Darkness, fog, and rough terrain became allies. Elena signaled, her hands steady. The team executed a simulated attack, closing in on the target from an unguarded angle. When the whistle blew, signaling mission complete, the group collapsed into the mud, gasping. They didn't just survive, they finished faster than expected. The coordinator appeared, jotting notes on a clipboard. Elena wiped sweat from her brow, needing no praise. She knew her quick decision had saved the team from a humiliating failure. In the dark, Cole's eyes met hers, burning with anger. He knew the truth. Elena had saved the unit, and that meant his self-appointed leadership was crumbling. The next day, the instructor's report spread through the company. Cruz identified a friendly fire risk and successfully redirected the unit. The dry words cut like a blade into Cole's pride. Some recruits whispered in awe. Others eyed Elena warily. To them, a girl had done what many male soldiers wouldn't dare. challenge a flawed leader to save her team. Elena didn't seek glory, but glory found her. She kept excelling in drills, without boasting or excuses. In her silence, she set a new standard. Ability knows no gender. But with that came the darker side of attention. Cole and his group whispered more, their gazes cold, tracking her every move. The mockery turned to bitter, veiled insults. The barracks atmosphere grew so tense that many recruits pretended not to hear, to avoid being dragged in. Elena felt the threat but didn't waver. In quiet nights, clutching her grandfather's letter, she recalled his words. They'll try to pull you down because they're scared to see you climb higher. Don't stop. Don't bow. 3 days after the forest exercise, Elena was summoned to Captain Rodriguez's office. The path to the command building was so quiet she could hear her boots crunch on wet concrete. The wooden door opened to the smell of strong coffee and stacks of files. Rodriguez looked up, his gaze sharp but not distant. Cruz, sit. His tone left no room for refusal. Elena sat, back straight, hands on her thighs. Her heart raced, but her face stayed calm. Rodriguez flipped through files, typed pages, listing each recruit's performance. He paused at one, tapping his pen lightly. Your shooting scores are among the highest I've seen for a rookie. And in that tactical exercise, you saved your unit from a mess. I want to know who taught you. Elena inhaled, voice low. My grandfather, sir. A World War II veteran. He believed if you're going to do something, do it right. Rodriguez nodded, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Sounds like he taught you well. Here's something to consider. After basic, you'll be recommended for the Joint Service Sniper Program. Army and Marines are looking for rare talent. It's a tough shot, low acceptance rate, but you've got what it takes. For a moment, Elena felt the ground vanish beneath her. She kept her composure, but inside, her heart pounded. A new path opened, one she hadn't dared dream of. Yes, sir. I'm honored. Rodriguez gave a slight nod. Good. But remember, if you take this, you're not just carrying your own expectations. Thousands of eyes out there need proof that women can stand tall in the toughest roles. Don't let anyone take that from you. Stepping out of the office, Elena felt an invisible weight settle on her shoulders, the weight of trust from strangers counting on her to break barriers. Word spread fast. Soon, the barracks knew Elena was tapped for the Joint Sniper Program. For many recruits, it was a point of pride. Jessica hugged her tightly in their room, eyes gleaming. You're going to make history, Elena. Some whispered how lucky they were to train with someone so gifted. But the joy didn't last. Outside her circle of friends, venomous voices rose. In a corner of the mess hall, Cole Hart sat with a few recruits, his voice low but audible. Funny, isn't it? No one gets picked that fast. Clearly, there's favoritism. Maybe Cruz knows how to charm the instructors. Snickers rippled around the table. One recruit muttered, heard she gets one-on-one time with Williams at the range. Another added, bet she's got connections higher up. Those scores can't be legit. The words were like thin knives, spreading through the barracks. Elena heard them, of course. While cleaning her rifle, standing in the chow line, or passing the training yard, there was always a skeptical glance somewhere. She tried to stay calm, but in the quiet of night, rereading her grandfather's letter, anger surged. He'd taught her that honor came from effort, not rumors. But how could she prove it when the envious were ready to twist the truth? Jessica noticed. One evening, seeing Elena sitting on the porch, staring blankly at the starry sky, she sat beside her. Don't let their gossip win. You hit the target when they wanted you to fail. Keep doing that. One day, even the blindest will have to admit it. Elena gave a faint smile, thanking her. But deep down, she knew the next challenge would decide everything. Training grew harsher. Drills moved beyond the M4 to pistols, light machine guns, even basic sniper rifles. Each time the weapon changed, Elena adapted quickly. Her shots clustered tightly, earning nods from instructors. Attention focused on her. Some teammates sought her advice, listening intently as she adjusted their stance or reminded them to control their breathing. But for Cole, every time Elena touched a rifle, it was a challenge. He trained to exhaustion, eyes bloodshot, but his scores never surpassed hers. His frustration turned to resentment, then open hostility. One evening in the noisy mess hall, Cole's bitter words carried across the room. "She can hit paper, but the battlefield isn't paper. When real bullets fly, we'll see who drops first." Whispers spread across the tables. Elena sat still, eyes darkening, her hand gripping her spoon like a trigger. She understood. The real battle was never about targets or scores. It was unfolding right in the barracks where honor, truth, and trust were stretched like a bowstring about to snap. And soon, a test would lay everything bare. A gray dawn cloaked Fort Lewis. Thick fog blanketed the range, white targets looming like ghosts in the mist. Dozens of recruits lined up, rifles clutched to their chests, faces tense. This was no ordinary session. This was the final test scores that would follow them through their military careers. Elena tightened her M4's strap, palms icy. From behind, she felt Cole's gaze burning into her steps. He wanted her to fail. Not just him, those who'd spread rumors were waiting for her to stumble, to prove women don't belong here. Sergeant Williams stepped forward, his voice booming. 3 phases: close range, long range, moving targets. No exceptions, no excuses. This is where you show us if our training was worth it. The whistle blew. Phase 1 began. Elena stepped to the line. Ahead, targets stood dozens of meters away, bullseyes stark against white. She knelt, inhaled deeply, and raised her rifle. Her heart raced, but her breathing steadied. She squeezed the trigger, each shot pounding like a drum in her chest. When the smoke cleared, every round formed a tight circle around the center. The recruits behind her went silent. Some exchanged glances, whispering. Cole's jaw tightened, his chin jutting out. Phase 2. Long-range targets, 400 meters, 500, even 600. For many, it was a nightmare. Early morning winds swept through the valley, fog blurring the sights. But Elena recalled the countless times her grandfather made her shoot in Texas winds. She calculated, adjusted her aim, took a long breath, and fired. First shot, metal rang ting. Second shot, right beside the first. Third shot, the bullseye cracked open. The instructor, watching through binoculars, nodded slowly. The whispers behind turned to heavy silence. Phase 3, the hardest. Moving targets, popping up unpredictably from multiple directions. Loudspeakers blared simulated artillery, shouts, and helicopter noise. Artificial smoke flooded the range, turning it into a battlefield. This was where even the best recruits could lose control. Elena advanced, eyes narrowed in the smoky fog. A target sprang up on the left. She pivoted, fired. Ting. One darted past on the right. She shifted, fired. Ting. Ahead, 2 targets appeared in succession. She held her breath, squeezed twice. Ting. Ting. The world vanished, leaving only her breathing, heartbeat, and the echo of precise shots. She remembered her grandfather's words. When chaos surrounds you, trust your preparation. Don't look at the chaos, look at the bullseye. When the final whistle blew, Elena lowered her rifle. Sweat soaked her back, her hands trembling slightly. But in her eyes, a blazing certainty burned. She knew she'd done all she could. The officers scored in silence. Recruits held their breath. 1 minute, 5, then 10. Time stretched endlessly. Finally, Sergeant Williams stepped forward. His voice carried without a mic. Crew's perfect score. The crowded range fell into absolute silence. Even the wind through the trees seemed to pause. Some recruits' eyes widened, disbelieving their ears. Others exchanged looks, faces mixed with awe and respect. Williams paused, his gaze locked on Elena. In 20 years here, I've seen only a handful get a perfect score. Most had prior military or civilian training. Cruz, you did it on your first try. And not only that, you did it while half this unit hoped you'd fail. Scattered applause broke out, then grew louder. Jessica nearly cried, slamming her hand on the table, cheering. A group of recruits hooted in support, but not everyone. In the corner, Cole stood still, eyes dark, jaw clenched. He didn't clap or cheer, just stared at Elena like she'd taken something that was his. That night, the barracks atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Half the recruits congratulated Elena, the other half whispered behind her back. Cole and his group huddled, their voices low but sharp as knives. No one's that perfect. There's got to be cheating. Or the instructors played favorites. She's just a political stunt. Elena heard it all. Sitting on her bunk, cleaning her rifle, her hands shook slightly. Pride and anger tangled inside her. She'd poured sweat, blood, and tears into that perfect score. Yet it was branded as favoritism? Jessica sat beside her, voice low but firm. You don't need to prove anything more. Today's results shut down every rumor. Elena nodded, but her eyes drifted to Cole. She knew for some, the truth wasn't enough. They'd keep lying, keep attacking until something bigger forced them to stop. The Fort Lewis barracks sank into darkness, faint yellow lamplight spilling onto wet tiles. That night, the air was heavy enough to slice. After her perfect shooting score, the barracks split in two. One half hailed Elena as a new symbol. The other murmured suspicion. Elena sat by her bunk, wiping down her rifle's parts with slow, deliberate motions. On the table, her grandfather's old letter lay under the light, its shaky words whispering encouragement. But Cole Hart's murmurs cut through, each word like a knife twisting in. No one gets a perfect score without tricks, he muttered, loud enough for the room to hear. She's just a prop for their propaganda. Don't think everyone buys it. Some recruits snickered, others stayed silent, afraid to get involved. Jessica glanced at Elena, eyes worried. But Elena didn't respond. She kept cleaning her rifle, each swipe slow and eerily calm. Finally, Cole stood. His boots thudded on the floor, echoed by three friends following. They approached Elena's bunk. The room went deathly quiet. Breaths held. Cruz, Cole said, his voice taut as a wire. We need to talk. Elena set her rifle down and looked up. Her eyes gleamed in the dark. About what? About you making us look like idiots, Cole snapped. No one shoots like that. You cheated, or you got special treatment. Don't act innocent. The room froze. Every recruit watched, waiting for her reaction. Elena stood, slightly taller than him with her back straight. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The problem's not me. The problem's you can't handle that someone you look down on is better than you. Cole's face flushed red. Don't get cocky. But before he could step closer, a shout thundered from the door. Shut it, all of you. Sergeant Williams strode in, eyes like steel. The barracks snapped to attention, hearts pounding. He scanned the tense scene, then stopped in front of Elena. Cruz, he said, his voice like a hammer. Command just sent orders. You're officially assigned to the Joint Sniper Training Program. You leave next week. Pack your gear. The room went silent, as if struck by lightning. Some recruits' jaws dropped, others rushed to congratulate her. Jessica leapt up, hugging Elena tightly, tears shining. Cole stood pale, fists clenched so hard his knuckles stood out. Williams left, leaving behind a stifling silence. Elena sat, trying to steady herself, but her hands trembled faintly. She'd done it. All the effort, doubt, and tears had opened a new door. The next few days flew by. Elena packed her gear, folding each uniform, cleaning every piece of equipment. Jessica helped, chatting as she worked. You're going to be on another level. But don't forget us down here. Elena smiled, replying, No one succeeds alone. I'm taking you all with me. Still, the barracks remained tense. Admiring glances mixed with envy followed Elena everywhere. And then, on the final morning, as she shouldered her pack to board the transport, Cole appeared. He stood a few steps away, silent for a moment. His face was taut, but the usual arrogance was gone. "Cruz," he said, voice hoarse. "I owe you an apology." Elena raised an eyebrow, caught off guard. "I was wrong about you. I let my insecurities turn me into a jerk. You earned everything you've got. I should have seen that sooner." His eyes held genuine regret. Elena looked back, seeing sincerity. She nodded slightly. "I accept. We all have things to learn, Hart." Cole extended his hand. "Good luck. Make us proud." Elena shook it, a firm grip, then turned away. In that moment, she understood. The greatest enemy isn't others. It's the fear of being left behind. The transport roared to life, rolling away from Fort Lewis. Elena sat by the window, watching the misty Washington forest fade. In her hand, her grandfather's worn letter rested. "My girl, success isn't sitting at someone else's table. It's daring to build a new one, where others like you can sit." Elena smiled. She was no longer just a girl proving herself. She'd become part of something far bigger, a new chapter awaiting at the Joint Sniper program. And this time, she'd step forward with unshakable belief. She belonged here, and her journey was just beginning. The transport carrying Elena Cruz pulled away, leaving behind the damp Fort Lewis barracks and unforgettable memories. She'd arrived as a mocked rookie holding a rifle for the first time, and left as an exceptional marksman, selected for the Joint Sniper program, a chance only a handful out of thousands ever reach. But Elena left more than perfect scores or training reports. She left silence in the hearts of those who doubted her, proud gazes from teammates who believed in her, and a story that perseverance and discipline can shatter any wall of prejudice. Elena knew the real challenges lay ahead. The sniper program would be tougher than anything she'd faced. Grueling physical demands, crushing mental pressure, and competition down to every breath. But she wasn't fighting just for herself anymore. She fought for her grandfather, for the teammates who supported her, and for young girls across the country looking to her for a reason to believe, "I can too." And the question for you watching this story is this: if Elena could turn mockery into applause, what's stopping you from proving your true potential? If you want to follow Elena's journey at the sniper program where bullets no longer aim at mere targets, leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and hit follow. Because this story is just beginning, and you won't want to miss the next chapter.